Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session on this Sunday morning. And this is my first time giving this session on practical data science through Kaggle competitions. I am Vaideshwaran Archana. And my main motivation for giving this session is basically, this is a much more beginner level session where I'm just going to as such. And a lot of people, a lot of beginners in data science come up to me and they often ask me questions like, how do I get started? And even if I do get started, which is like the perfect platform. Or for example, I have learned a certain course, for example, Andrew NG on Coursera, and now I want to figure out how to actually apply it or how to apply these concepts, how to apply how I build models to practice. So this is where Kaggle comes in. And so thank you so much for joining, and let me go ahead and begin. So before I begin, I just want to give an introduction about myself and my journey in this data science space. So currently I'm an engineer at Continental Automotive. So I'm based out of Singapore. And my job is basically, around working around deep learning applications in, um, you know, um, things like small devices and also for autonomous vehicles. And previously, like recently, I graduated from NUS, like National University of Singapore, and I worked in solar energy systems. So I'm very fascinated around electrical systems and power systems too. And as I was working, as Zingling also very perfectly put it, like I was working as a deep learning engineer and an NLP engineer before in a pharma IT company. I found that data, power of machine learning is so good, and the fact that we can use machine learning for any on any data. And the first thing that came to my mind was, why not use it on the renewable energy in the smart grid energy space? So that is why I sort of went back to school to get my master's and to work on this specific area. And so yeah, I up till now, like up till a few months ago, I was a graduate student at NUS. And also on my during my free time, or like on the latter half of the day, I work at Women Who Code, which is basically a non-profit organization. We are like a global or non-profit organization, and our mission is to sort of inspire women to excel in technology careers. And I work as a leadership fellow. So one of the perks of working as a leadership fellow is that I get to experience not only being a software engineer by day, but also practice leadership skills um, as part of being part of these tracks. So Women Who Code has this global tracks, and I basically co-lead the Python and the cloud tracks with Bree. And apart from that, in this year actually, in the start of this year, I got a chance to be a part of Udacity, and actually be part of this Udacity and Intel to create this Edge AI for IoT developers. I don't know how many of you have actually taken this course, a nano degree. So this is a nano degree purely for edge computing. As to how do you begin with edge computing, and Intel provides this really amazing toolkit to do so. It's called OpenVINO. And so I designed the second course, which is choosing the right hardware for the edge. So enough about me. I'll move right into what is Kaggle and something that you've come to learn today. So basically, Kaggle provides you a platform to do practical data science. And one of the most important things is it gets your hands on data sets, right? It gets your hands quick and dirty and an easy way to start with data science. And also, like one of the many advantages of Kaggle as we go through it is the fact that they have competitions. And these competitions give you a platform to showcase your work, get hired, get monetary benefits, and so on. So today I'll be just giving a very brief introduction into what Kaggle is, showing you the platform a little. So maybe at the end of this talk, maybe you will want to go and try it out on your own. And if you haven't tried it before, so and I hope you have a good experience. So let us start with understanding how do you solve a machine learning problem. I usually start most of my talks here because I think this is a fundamental way of how do I solve a machine learning problem. So when I get a problem which is like data science based, which is AI based, what is the first thing I do? I collect data for it. You tell me that a certain problem exists in the industry. I need to have data around it to make any good predictions. So first of all, you need to accumulate data. And accumulation of data, I think, perhaps is one of the hardest and the worst part of the process, because you need the right set of data. You also need to make sure you have a lot of data, because at the end of the day, if you're using deep learning based models, you have to make sure that your network is large enough. And if your network is large enough, you have to also correlate it with a large data set. Now, coming to the second part of the process is where you sort of clean and prepare and manipulate your data. I think this is also not as important as collecting data, but I think, a little less important, you might say, but still a vital part of the process is that you have to take the data and you have to analyze it. I guess as data scientists or data engineers or AI engineers, are first and most crucial part, even before we start writing code, even before we, jump right into making models to suit our data, is to make sure that our data is right. And the way that you make sure is you make sure that you have, you have good data with good bias. That means that you have to have the good in the data and the bad in the data too. So that is also done, like, you clean and prepare and manipulate the data, and then you sort of train the model. So before you train the model, you have to pick the model. For example, you have like images in your data, so the first thing that comes to your mind is, especially if you have done a little bit of courses or read online, is that maybe I have to use a convolutional neural network. If not, if you have like maybe models which are like time series based, like I was working on forecasting based models for solar energy systems, and the first thing that comes to your mind is, okay, I can use LSTMs, like long short term memory networks. So that is another part when you choose the model and you end up training the model on the particular data, and then you have to test it. So now that you've trained it, you notice how your model is basically performing. If you plot the curves and figure out if your model is performing well, and if it's performing well, you test it. So then testing is a form of performance too. And then what you do is actually you take some part of your data that the model hasn't seen before. For example, you train it on 80% of your data, and 20% of the data the model has never seen before. You take this data and you actually test it. And then what you do is, in testing, you realize, okay, maybe it's underfitting, maybe it's not learning enough, or maybe it's memorizing, it's overfitting. So you make these conclusions from how it's performed and you improve upon it. So this is like the basic process of solving any machine learning problem. So now coming to Kaggle, one of the very main advantages of using Kaggle is the fact that you actually have these beginner friendly and very easy access to data. I think that's, like I said, the most crucial part, and the most hard part of the entire problem is sort of solved by Kaggle. So you actually have access to training data, and not like data as such. And that sort of helps you to start your first machine learning project. So the easy and is very like, there are a lot of data sets, but one of the few data sets I mentioned here is, we have a very easy, very beginner friendly data set like Titanic. So Titanic is looking at the person's data. You can find out, I think there's a link here, I'll just go directly into it. So with Titanic dataset, you can actually figure out if the rate, predict the survival, I guess, rate and stuff of a particular person who went on the Titanic. And you can also, there's also categorical data set like aircraft, wildlife strikes. So this is about how many, what type of birds, what sort of migratory birds actually, and it has data of different migratory birds that actually get hit by airplanes, or actually like hit themselves on the airplane, either way. Like, so basically that data set is also available. And then you have the COVID-19 data set. I think it's one of the most popular data sets. It's an X-ray data set which is available, and it's sort of an open research problem Kaggle data competition, and you can check it out. It has data sets, and this is completely community driven too. That's something really nice about the COVID-19, is that people have taken out time to actually create these data sets and put it up on Kaggle. So moving on, so what does Kaggle data sets look like? So let me just move on to Kaggle and show it to you. Yeah. So this is how the Kaggle platform looks like, and you basically move into data sets. So now you can create your own public data sets, and you can also look at data sets from here. And so these are the various data. So for example, you want to have a look into this data set. So you move into this data set and you notice the various things that are present on this website, right? So first of all, you have the context. So the context actually tells you what is actually present in the data, what sort of columns or attributes are actually present, and the here it specifies the subset too, and the various information is given here. And also one of the very important and I guess like one of the very interesting things that Kaggle gives is Data Explorer. So basically, it tells you information into the different columns. Like here, it's given for age, it's given for, I guess, cholesterol. So things like that. And that helps you give an insight into the data, which is like sort of the second part of the process where you understand what this data contains and what I need to clean out and what I need to manipulate. And apart from that, yeah, so that's pretty much it. And then what you do is that on the data, you can also sort of create your new data set. So creating your new data set, you need to go here and then you can upload your own files and sort of create it on private mode or just create it. So that's also a really interesting base because a lot of people, have access. Maybe they've annotated a few data sets. Like I have annotated one, which is I used for solar panels, and you can do something similar, like when you have annotated data sets, and maybe it's something that you have learned along the way, and you want to just open source it. And Kaggle is the perfect platform and gives you the perfect platform for others to come view your data set too. So yeah, so it with Kaggle data set, as I said, it gives you data exploration, it gives you column information. For notebooks and for creating your own data sets, you can create your own or look at any public notebooks. And it gives you the access to do discussions. So with each of the data set, so for example, this is the COVID-19 one, this is the Open Research Dataset Challenge. You can also, there's a lot of discussion that goes on in the data set. So for example, this is all the discussion, the upvotes. So you can even follow what's happening around the data set. So that is very interesting too. And like if you do have the time, you want to start somewhere, and especially with understanding how the COVID data works, start here. This is like a very, very popular data set right now. And yeah, and you want to open source your own data, Kaggle is really good place. You just need to add a good description and make sure that you're using some maybe exploration techniques, like maybe use Seaborn. So Seaborn is a really good tool to understand your own data, and also use like maybe pandas to figure out some stats from your data and post it. And that might help people to actually come on your come on this Kaggle site of yours and actually pick the data and use it for doing other manipulation or for doing some building some models on top of it. So now that I have explained about the data, what the first two steps, I come to the second part as to how do you start building the models. And to start building the model, you sort of need the environment to do so. So like ideally, how would you code? You would end up coding in, like, for example, VS Code if you're using like VS Code editors or Vim, etc. But like for notebooks, so Kaggle provides something called notebooks. And the first step in looking at the notebook is to pick a programming language. And Kaggle provides both R and Python. Personally, I use Python. I'm not at all familiar with R, but if you want, you can whichever language you're familiar with, you can start off with that. So, for example, I want to use this COVID-19 dataset. So I click on New Notebook. Sorry. Yeah, so here you can select the languages. So both Python and R is available. I'll be choosing Python. And then you can choose a notebook or a script. So Notebook is much more for data exploration, and Script is for fitting the model. It's better to use a notebook because it gives you access to much more things that are available from Kaggle. And yeah, so and also it gives you one of the very interesting thing is it gives you an accelerator. So if you used the Google Colab notebook before, it's almost similar to that. So it gives you a option to click on none. So when you click on none, it runs on the CPU. And if you click, you also have the GPU and the TPU. What you have to note is that the GPU is limited. I think around 42 hours per week, but I think that's more than enough if you're just starting off. But I definitely recommend you if you're having a large data set and a large model to use a GPU or a TPU too. And so yeah, one second. So that is like one of the second process that I explained is that you can provide the compute that is necessary to run your models. So with CPU, you have the central processing unit. So it's basically present on any device. It's present on your own laptops, everywhere it's present, on your PCs, etc. The GPU, on the other hand, is a graphic processing unit. And as I said, the CPU is unlimited, whereas GPU and TPU are quite limited. And there's this very interesting blog I found of how to efficiently use the GPU. Like, for example, it mentions things like you can turn on the GPU when you're planning to use it and then turn off. You can also monitor the GPU usage because as and when you start using Kaggle much more frequently, you're going to realize that GPU usage is quite limited. So when that happens, you need to make sure that you maybe have batch sessions where you send your data in batches to the model instead of sending data all at a go. So if you send it in batches, you're like optimally using the GPU. You can do things like that. And, for example, they tell you can stop the interactive session after 60 minutes of idle timeout. So things like that. And I've attached a link here and I can share the link to the slides too later and that will help you. And so yeah, I am like I'm quite obsessed with hardware as such, and I think like that's like one of the fundamental reasons of where we are right now with deep learning. So I'm just gonna do a very quick intro into what this is and what this actually offers you, because when I say CPU, GPU, and TPU, although it sounds fancy on the top, when do you use what, right? So with CPU versus GPU, as I said, CPU is quite general purpose in nature. This means that it lets you do a wide number of tasks, but the issue is it won't let you do tasks concurrently. That is where GPU comes in. It's like a parallel processor, and what it does is it helps you do these tasks which are specifically meant, as the name graphic processing unit comes up. It's specifically meant for doing image and video processing. So that's where parallel computing comes up. And then we have the TPU coming up. So what do I mean by TPU here? So TPU was actually introduced by Google. It's a tensor processing unit. So it specifically runs, obviously, as I said, even Google, and I said it's a tensor processing unit. So it runs TensorFlow based models for training and inference. But unlike the CPU, there are no compilers which are developed for TPU. So hence, it's not for general purpose. But the number of operations that you can do per second is actually much more than a CPU or a GPU combined. So that gives you access to do something very specific to deep learning, like that is tensor based operations. So yeah, that is a very small introduction into what exactly is the hardware that is available with Kaggle. Moving on to how can you create your own new notebook. So as I said before, you just select the language, click on notebook, and then click on TPU. So sorry, there are like a couple of words behind, so I'm getting a little distracted. But yeah, so you can click on anything here. You can even click on none, and you can just click on create. So I'm just going to use the CPU. But yeah, so this is like the notebook that's created. So this is like a very interactive platform as you can see. And it's very much like mimics how Colab looks. I think it's a little better than Colab, especially if you're using like huge data sets. Like I guess I was working on one of these problems that a company provided, and they gave me like 40 GB of data. I'm not gonna download it on my system and probably gonna run that task. I think this was like one of the hiring challenges, but I quickly did a quick search, and what I realized is that this is a Kaggle data set. So this is amazing for me because I can pick the data set and add it to Kaggle directly and open the notebook like I did. So as I said, one of the advantages is as soon as you do that, you get your data here, and sort of present here, Kaggle/input. And that is one of the advantages of this, because then you get the data directly into it. So there's no need to import the data or get the data or load the data into the notebook as such. And it also gives you basic machine learning or deep learning libraries like NumPy and Pandas, which is for doing some mathematical operation or for data processing. Especially if you're a beginner, I would definitely advise you to use Pandas and to figure out Pandas. I think Pandas is one of the very interesting libraries that deep learning provides, and it's very easy to learn. So I would definitely recommend that. And also, if you're someone who is wants to go a step further, which I would recommend, is that you add a data set. You want to add a few more data set to it. I'm just gonna add any. So there's one on Donald Trump rallies. So you can just add this to the current notebook. So that makes the notebook have two kinds of data, not only the data that's from the COVID-19 research challenge, but also Donald Trump rallies. So this means that you can take both data and maybe you can combine the columns. Maybe it doesn't make sense here because the data sets are not so correlated, but then you can also do it when you have data which is similar to each other, and there you can try out stuff that Panda provides. And what's one of the other interesting thing is that the output is actually saved, or the notebook is saved at Kaggle/working. So yeah, this is how a typical notebook looks like. So as I said, you follow the steps as I explained below, and you copy and edit a certain notebook. So you also have this very interesting option that this provides. Let me just go ahead and try that. Yeah. So for example, you're looking at someone else's notebook and you're wondering, okay, I mean, this person has done a really good job in maybe doing this time series analysis on the space missions, and I'm someone who doesn't know how to write code from scratch. Can I learn from this person? Yeah, you can do that on Kaggle too. You can just do a copy edit on this button here, and once you click on it, you get the data, you get the person's notebook. So that's very interesting. You can build on top of the person's notebook, and that will help you learn a lot of things from what the person has done and also work on top of it. So yeah, you have the notebook here. You also have the space mission. If you want, you can add a few data to this, like add another data set to this, and also do much more analysis on the current data. Okay, and yeah, there are other tools and functionalities that the notebook provides. First is the fact that it provides you an internet connection. So you can do an on and off for internet. So you can even do, when you do an on and off, what it gives you is a chance to sort of maybe if you switch it on, you can actually use it for talking to APIs on the net. If you especially have REST APIs and you want to call these APIs on your notebook, you can do that via this. And the accelerator option is here too. So you're training it and you suddenly realize this is taking too much time on my CPU. It's better to just switch it to GPU or TPU. Yeah. And you can add more data, as I said, especially as a beginner. Try to use, I'm just going to repeat it a bit, but yeah, try to use data sets and try to combine column and figure out pandas as much as possible. And this is present in the Kaggle/working directory. Yeah, that brings me to, I guess, the second last part, which is Kaggle competitions. Now that we have learned enough about Kaggle as such, and enough about how can I get the data sets, how can I create the notebook and build my models, I guess the next thing is one of the very interesting thing that Kaggle provides is a competition. So basically with competitions, you have these company and organizations which upload data sets, and you can compete to get better results. And after you compete, you can actually get recognition for winning. And you also have like monetary aspects, like some competitions also have a certain I guess prize money. And there are a lot of companies which hire through these competitions. So what are the insights into this competition? Like what happens? So I just found this really nice blog and I wrote like sourced it here. So they talk about your how to actually win a competition, and to do so, your winning solution has to be different. I mean, as a beginner, I know it sounds overwhelming, but the thing is like slowly, if you set the right goals, you can go towards winning a competition. And for winning a competition, you have to make sure that your solution has to be different and your results are sort of comparable to others. This means, like, if you're using a, let me say, a classification based model, this means your accuracy has to be comparatively higher than your counterparts or your other people who are actually participating in the competition. And you need to have a certain structure. This means, like, you can't solve a Kaggle competition in an afternoon and just give it to a company. This means that you have to, go at it in a systematic manner. And that is when, you put your skills to use. Maybe as a beginner, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But as and when you start doing more competitions and you start seeing how others have done it too, it'll start to make sense. Sorry. So for the competition like the some ways to tackle it and to do these competitions is keep simple goals, as learning something new. You're not doing this, just don't do it for the sake of the competition, or do it for learning something new. And review the most voted kernels that will be available on Kaggle too, and sort of use the forum, use as I showed you the discussion, use that to ask questions and like ask people about what is happening, because in the start, asking questions is the only way you can go forward. And don't worry about low ranks. Your ranks might be really low at the beginning, but slowly as you keep doing it, you're going to move up in the system. So I'll quickly show you how the compete looks like. So yeah, this is the compete that's present here on your left hand side. So these are the active competitions right now. So you can, for example, this is on pulmonary embolism detection. You can just join the competition and yeah, you can submit your predictions. And there are various other notebooks available, so you can see how others are also doing it. And the discussion, as I said, use this discussion to know what is happening and ask questions. And the leaderboard basically tells you who is on top, who's getting a really. So I guess this is like a regression based model, so they're looking for and maybe an error which is really low. So yeah, so you can do things like that with competitions. And there are other features that Kaggle provides too. You have the discussion feature. So with the discussion feature, you can go and ask questions on any product. You can ask questions, question and answers. There's the Kaggle forum, and so on. Sorry. Yeah. So one of the other things that Kaggle provides is a way to have a Kaggle progression system. This means that you can start off as a novice and then become a grandmaster too. And I think I have the progression system. Let me just check and like bring you the progression. Okay, so like you start off as a novice, is you just join the community and then you become a contributor, where you make like you go to a competition and make a task or submission and get like cast one vote and one comment, and then you become an expert where you like win these bronze medals on data set competitions and so on, and then a master, and then finally a grandmaster too. And a lot of companies hire based on this too. For example, I guess H2O.ai hires a lot of grandmasters just because of their capabilities to perform on Kaggle. So Kaggle is a perfect place if you're looking for that. And also you have courses that Kaggle provides. So various Python, intro to machine learning, and pandas and things like that you can learn here. And there are jobs available. You can check out who is hiring and go on here and maybe check out the job descriptions too.